Hi, my name is Miriam, and welcome once more again to today's program. We are looking at how our body function. Knowing our body is one of the important things that each and everyone need to equip himself or herself about it. We don't need to be a doctor, but we need to know the basic things of how our body function. With this knowledge, we will be able to understand and being able to eliminate some possible bad habits in our lifestyle that affects our body. But before we proceed in today's presentation, shall we bow our heads for a prayer? Our kind and gracious Lord who art in heaven, we want to thank you for this moment. We thank you for creating us as we are, and we are thankful for these lessons that are coming to us. Help us that we may apply them in our daily life, and that by following your principles that you have given us, our pains, our suffering may be relieved. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, the Bible tells us that, in the beginning, God created everything, and all that He created was perfect. There was no pain, there was no suffering, there was no death, nothing at all. Now, we are told that humanity was the only creature that was created by God. Because when you look at the account of creation in Genesis chapter 1 and then which ends in Genesis chapter 1 verse 31, then chapter 2 he rested, you realize that in all that he has done except for man, God actually spoke everything into existence. And when you look in Psalms chapter 33 verse 6, it says everything that exists, it exists by his word. He spoke it into existence. So we can actually see that man was God's crowning, act. His crowning a masterpiece of his creation. So at the end of the day, at the end of the week, after God has created everything, on the sixth day, God actually created humanity. And the Bible tells us that in Psalms chapter 139, verse 14, says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth that. Now, this verse actually means a lot. And when we are going to go through our today's presentation on healthy, we will understand indeed why the psalmist was writing that particular verse, why he was inspired to write that, because he saw that indeed humanity are God's masterpiece. They are the crowning acts of his creation. The way God created humanity, it's a very, very unique way that, even a scientist, even an atheist who does not believe in God, by just looking at how human beings were created, you can do nothing but wonder to say indeed there is a creator. For example, let's look at the level of organization, how the body of human being is laid down. Now, you have a human being, the entire human being there, who is able to do almost everything, capable of running, exercising, and doing all that. But then you realize that, this whole body or this whole person has different system within themselves or within the person that enables them to carry out all these functions that they're able to do. Now, this is how the human body is laid down. Right, we have what is called as an atom. Now, an atom consists of electrons, protons, and neutrons. It cannot be, divisible. It's a small unit, and therefore now the group of atom, which are identical or not identical, when they come together, when they are joined together, they are called a molecule. And then further, we are told that now these molecules also, more molecules that comes together, that are formed together, these constitute what we see as the cells. Now, the cells have different receptors on it, which enables it to receive, different kind of substance and material to penetrate into the cell. For example, the glucose, when we eat food, normally our food contains starch, which is later converted, and many other elements that are converted. So it has receptors that enables it to receive such kind of things. And these receptors, they are like keyhole kind of. So it's only specific, specific material or substance that can enter in a particular opening. So for example, the receptors for the insulin with the glucose, anything else cannot go in it. And so that's how the cell is designed. And you find that this is where some of metabolism process happens, the breaking down of the food that we have eaten. Of course, as we are going to look down, we see that the process of breaking down of food begins as far as the mouth. So now what is actually being broken down here is actually from what the cell has received from the small intestine, as we are going to look further into that. So now the group of tissues that carries out and perform particular function, now we have them as tissues. Now also the group of tissues, you'll find that this group of tissues, they form what we call as an organ. So these are able to carry out specific task. Now we have different types of organ. We have the heart, we have with the lungs, we have the liver, we have the intestines, and many other different types of organs. So this organ consists of tissues, and then this organ also, you'll find that each organ is able to do particular function, but they work together. No wonder the Bible says we are like, the church is like, it's like the body, the human body, because each part, even though it may look small, it has a particular function which is vital to the other. So you see here that when the liver on its own, it has its own function, but then it also has a certain function within a particular system. Like, for example, in the digestive system, as we are going to look further into our presentation, you realize that it has a role apart from its main function. And therefore, at the end of the day, you have a human being that have different systems, because this is just an example. It's not only one. Human beings have many systems in their body, as we are going to see further. So you realize that these are the different type of systems that the human body has. You have the immune system that is responsible for, for defending your human body. This is your security one. This is your NDFs, for example. That is your Namibia Defense Force. That is making sure that whatever comes into the body system, it just fight back. And then we have your digestive system, which now deals with whatever comes in the stomach. Then you have the cardiovascular, your heart. Then you have got the skin, that makes sure that it protects you from the external environment, whatever harm, whatever things that can, cause harm to you. And also the skin serves as excretory system at some point, because it's through the pores that you get to sweat and all those. So sometimes it also serves a purpose of excreting toxic from the body. All right, and then you have the respiratory system there that has to do with the lungs and the breathing. You have the endocrine there. Then you have the reproductive system, the excretory system, the muscular system, and the nervous system. So these are different types of systems that operate within the human body. So at the end of the day, you have a complete human being. Now, should any of this system fails, then you are in trouble. For example, if your immune system fails, which makes sure that it fights all the pathogens that comes into your body, it means that you'll be left defenseless as far as your immune system is concerned. Or should your digestive system fail, it means that how are these other areas like your cells and many other that depends on your digestive system to function? How will it work? So each of those systems is important, and it is important that each and every one of them, they are well maintained and are kept safe. Now, failure to do that, one will have serious trouble in their health. Now, the digestive system, which we're going to look at specifically for tonight, we are not going to cover all that. I mean, that's a lot of information there. Even the digestive system, we are going just to cover some few things, because it's a lot of information. You can actually go and read further on that. Now, the digestive system, involves, the mouth, the teeth, salivary gland. It runs down until everything goes out of the rectum through the anus. Now, this is what happens when we eat food. Now, it may become as a surprise for many, but digestion actually begins in the mouth. This is why it's important to take care of our mouth. Now, our teeth, these are our grinding machines for the food. So when we take in food, we start chewing that food. It's a process of breaking down. We start breaking down those food into smaller pieces so that they are able to travel through the esophagus and to the rest of where they need to be carried. So in the process of chewing, the salivary gland also releases saliva. Now, the saliva is very, very important in this process as well. It's very important in this process as well, because as you are chewing, your teeth is together with the tongue, tossing the food left, right, and center, and all that. The saliva get to mix with the food to make it soft and moist so that it can be able to travel down the esophagus very well. Now, the saliva contains 90% water. Here you have a crisis for people who don't drink water. Now, if you don't drink enough water, it means then that your saliva will be very thick and it will not be so effective in terms of softening the food, because that's what it says. That's the purpose of it. It's supposed to, to soften the food. It also contains, enzymes called the amylase. Now, they helps in break down starch, which is found in the food that we eat. Like, for example, when you eat your pasta, when you eat your pap, when you eat your rice, when you eat your bread. So all these, they start to be broken down in the mouth. And this is why it's important that we need to chew our food properly. And actually, we are recommended that at least a minute of chewing, of processing. I know when it comes to my people, especially when it's people are eating pap with okra and with cassava pap and so forth. I have heard some sentiment that this one does just go flow without being chewed. It's difficult to chew, but yeah, we are required to chew, because if you don't chew, there are no teeth in the stomach. Teeth are in the mouth. So if food is not chewed in the mouth, it means that they will go down as chunks. It's big chunks, and it's gonna really, really cause trouble. And no wonder some digestive problems such as indigestion ends up because people do not actually chew proper. So after you have chewed your food properly, then with the help of the tongue, and you swallow the food is swallowed. And once the food is swallowed, you see it comes through this pipe, which is called the esophagus. This is actually where the food comes. There's a valve kind of here which opens for the food to be able to come through. And once the food is in the pipe, it's very interesting how God created human being. Once the food is in the pipe, there are some contractions and relaxing of the muscles there, and that allows to push food to go to the next station, to the next place. So the contraction will take place as a way of pushing that food to go further. For example, if you look at this picture in the corner, this is what happened. That process is called peristalsis. So the food is made into what is called bolus. After you've swallowed it, the bolus, they are formed from there to enable them to be pushed further. So what will happen is, once the food is in here, the muscles after or behind the bolus food, it will be pinched, or it will be contract, and then the muscles here where the food is actually going will relax to allow the food to move forward, and the same process will be repeated until the food have reached actually where it's supposed to be, which is the stomach. All right, so this is how the food travel through the esophagus until it reaches to the stomach. Now, so when it reaches here in the stomach, you'll realize that there is what is called the upper esophagus sphincter and the lower esophagus sphincter. So when it reaches at the stomach, the lower esophagus sphincter, which is the valve which is here, closes to allow now further digestion to take place in the stomach. So in other words, when you are eating, this opening, this valve, the lower esophagus sphincter, need to be open so that food can actually move through into the stomach. But then this valve, which is here down at the end of the stomach, need to close. so that food do not just pass through and go into the small intestine, as we're gonna see. So this valve at the end of the stomach you need to close, and then the one which is at the upper of the stomach need to, to open to enable food. So when you are actually eating, the stomach just receive food. And so it will be receiving until when you are done eating. So when you are done eating, this is what happens now. It closes from here. And then it also closes at the bottom here to make sure that food does not escape. And then there's a contraction and relaxing of muscles, like what we have seen in the esophagus, where this peristalsis process takes place. So also here we see that the food the stomach contracts and relax as a way of breaking down the food further. Now there's something that we need to also to consider here is when the food reaches the stomach, there's an acid which is actually generated by the lining of the stomach, which is called the hydrochloric acid. So when you're eating your food, just in case some bad bacteria have managed to slip in and then they are in the stomach, so that acid is meant to just kill whatever bacteria which is bad that is found on the food. So this is what happens. So it is very important that the stomach is closed when actually that process of breaking down here in the stomach taking place, because if it happens for whatever reason it opens here, then there's a disaster. That means you end up having acid reflux, what many people call it heartburns and so forth, because this content now contains acid. So once if this is pushed open, it means that then you will have acid contaminated food going up the esophagus, and then you have that trouble of burping and all that is associated with it. So that's why it's important that valves close. All right. So now in the stomach, as I've said, the food now has been is being broken down. Now this interesting how God has actually laid down or have created human stomach and how it happened, things like that. So as I said, it waits until when you've done eating, then the digestion starts, because I mean that is in the stomach now, because it cannot start breaking down if that valve is open, in order to prevent the flowing back of food. Okay, so now after the food is broken down, it is pushed to the stomach. Now this is another interesting. Again, you see the paralysis process again that we've seen there, where food is being pushed to contraction and relaxation of the muscles in the stomach in order to push the food out of the stomach. So the food is then pushed out of the stomach here, where it has been processed, and then it is pushed in the small intestine. Now some further breaking down also takes place in the small intestine, and we'll look at that. So the small intestine has three parts, the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. So this is where now you see now the food moves from there, and then it comes to the small intestine. Now, what happens in the small intestine is this, all right? Very interesting that the juice that is produced by the pancreas is released in the small intestine, and also the bile which is produced by the liver, it is also released or pumped into the small intestine. Okay, so for example, if you look at this, this is what happens. So the stomach will be somewhere here. It has been removed on the picture so that you have a clear of what happened. So now the stomach will be connected. This is the esophagus. We see this is the esophagus to which the stomach is connected. So the stomach will be lying like this, like in a curve. So it comes like this and it connects to this small intestine. Now it's very interesting to note that it's so technically laid, but everything functions very well, because when you look at this is the common bile duct, the green pipe kind of, which is connected to the small intestine. Now, it may appear as if this is, this is for the pancreas, but then this is for the liver. It's coming from the liver, and then it pumps actually the bile into the small intestine to enable the, to work on fats and other content that needs to be worked upon. And then there's also this other one, the pancreatic duct, which now it's for the pancreas, where now the pancreatic juice is pumped. And by the way, the pancreatic juice is pumped by the pancreas, and also the insulin. Now the insulin is the one that is responsible for regulating the glucose level in the blood. So these are pumped now into the small intestine, where further processing of the food takes place. So now you see that, in the previous picture, right? This one, you realize that the stomach is lying like this. So the pancreas actually is somewhere here underneath the stomach, just here, because it connects somewhere here to the stomach, and then it lies like this, like a leaf. And then the liver is like an umbrella on top of the stomach. So that's how it is. So you realize that now anything that happens, should the stomach, for whatever reason, expands, you can be rest assured that there'll be going to be some discomfort for some organs, because the pancreas is just underneath the stomach. So it's very, very important that we understand these things. Okay, so now the liver function. Okay, as I've said earlier, the liver releases the bile through the bile duct. Okay, so it releases the bile which need to be worked upon, which need to process, which it works on processing fats and many other things in the small intestine. So now what happens when this, there's too much of the bile than is needed. We have the gallbladder, which is where actually this is stored. So the excess or the extra bile is protected or is stored in here in the gallbladder, which eventually is used at a later stage whenever needed at the small intestine. So you can see here now on the complex of how it is. You can actually see that this is the stomach, this is the spleen, and this is, it looks like a mushroom kind of. This is the liver now, covering kind of the stomach with its veins and so forth. Then you have the pancreas underneath there, just between the small intestine and and the stomach, just there. That's where you see it overlays. Okay, so what happened now when food is done, or food has been processed in the small intestine, and the juices from the liver and from the pancreas has been released, and now breaking down is finally done. So what transpires is that there is absorption of nutrients that is now in the small intestine. So here, this is where all the nutrients, they are being absorbed, and they, through the cell membrane of the intestine, of the small intestine, it is passed through into the blood, and it's carried to the cells where it is needed. So after that process is done, or after the absorption of nutrients, what remains is actually waste product that need to, to be discarded out of the body. So just like we throw away garbage out of our house, because if it stays longer, it's gonna stink. So it has to go out of the house. So the same way also the body throw out, toxic, or, those waste after the breaking down of food and nutrients have been absorbed. Okay, so what happened is that, you see, the small intestine is actually connected to the big intestine, okay, which is sometimes called the colon. This is the inside of the, of the colon, which is having cancer. Yeah. And so this is the connection you see here from the umbilical cord here, you can see this is the part where the small intestine is actually connected. And so once the absorption process have taken place, all the waste thing passes through from right to left of the colon. So it's very interesting. It ascends. No wonder it is called ascending colon. So the waste product passed through, right? It passed through the ascending colon. It goes up, and then it goes through the transverse colon, and then it goes up there in the corner, down there the descending colon, and then until it reaches the sigmoid colon. Now, when it reaches the sigmoid colon, here it awaits, because there should be, mass movement, mass evacuation, and all that. So here, stools will be kept for a particular time, and then when it is a lot, then the body would transfer it to the rectum, where it has to be, to be discarded later at the anus. All right, so that's what happens when absorption have happened, and then the waste things have to to be removed out of the body. Now, what happened at the rectum? Okay, so the rectum connects the anus to the colon. Okay, it receives the stools from the colon, and it alerts the person that now it is time to eliminate. So as soon as things have been cleared from the sigmoid colon, it then passes to the rectum. And then as soon as something lands here, whether it's gas, whether it's stool, information is sent and say, no, there's something in the colon and we got to go do in the rectum, and we got to do something. So that sensory message, that message is communicated to the brain. Incredible. Imagine how far the rectum is, but then the message is sent to the brain to say, we have something in the rectum. Do we release it now or what? So the message will be communicated and say, no, not now. Well, suppose you're walking in town and you start feeling like you want to visit the toilet. So that's what happened. And there's no toilet nearby. So the message is sent, and then the communication is said, no, not now, just hold on a little longer. So what happened is that as soon as that message is communicated here, if the message is wait, right, then the rectum contracts just to hold a little longer, so it doesn't let go. It contracts to make sure that things don't go out. It closes. It's not to allow things to happen. And then if the message is, well, now it's okay, you can let go, then it relaxes, and then everything goes out through the anus, and then the rest of the waste, they are out of the system. So this is how God has created human being. This is just one system. You can just imagine then how much more of the other system, how they really function, and how incredible. This is the coordinating order. There's no crashing of the system, like as we know of human systems that created, like the computer system, and one day you wake up it has crashed. No, with this machinery, human being that God has created, there's no clashing of the system. It just operates. Now, the only thing that can cause it to clash is by our lifestyle. Our lifestyle can actually cause this machinery, our body, and all this system to malfunction, to not be able to properly function as God intended. Now, what are some of the things that can cause the system, particularly the digestive system that we have covered today, not to function properly? Okay, for example, poor water intake. Now, you have realized that from what we've started earlier, we have said that your saliva, which is produced in the salivary gland, contains 90% water. So if you are not drinking enough water, number one, your saliva will be very thick. Number two, remember there's absorption that takes place in the intestine. And actually, by the way, digestion itself requires, liquid. It requires water. Okay, but that does not mean that you need to take water and food at the same time. No, you need to be drinking water a lot before you eat. At least an hour before you eat. That allows your body to work on the water phase to prepare for digestion. Okay, and then the other thing that is affected if you don't drink enough water is that once the absorption has taken place in the small intestine, remember there's also another absorption that still takes place in the big intestine. So more water will still be extracted from the stool. So if you do not drink enough water, by the time that stool reaches the rectum, it is very thick like a brick. And when you visit that toilet, that bathroom, they're gonna be World War III. So one needs to really take a lot of water, to be able to, to help in the digestion process. And actually, it is because of poor intake of water that people, they end up being, constipation, they end up having challenges and even end up having hemorrhoids or piles, as others knows it. So because there is so much force when people, they visit the loo. Yeah, so at the end of the day, there's injuries, there's so many things that happens because people, they do not drink enough water. Okay, so drinking and eating at the same time, that's another poor habit that can affect the digestive system. Remember, when you are drinking and eating, the digestive system has to work first on one thing first, and it will normally work on water first before it can handle the food. So what happens to the food when your water is being handled in the body? It means that there's a lot of fermentation that takes place there. Remember, what we eat contains natural, whether it's artificial sugar, whatever, whether even healthy foods, they contain natural food, like fruits, they do have, they contain natural sugar. So in the process of them being prolonged without being worked upon, it means that fermentation can start occurring. And that already is a stomach brewed alcohol, which is enough to knock down your cells. And that will be unfit for for your blood. Your blood will be impure, not so good for your entire system. Okay, so the other bad habits that normally affects the proper function of the digestion is hot food or cold food. Now, too hot food normally result in a human being, in you not being able to chew properly, but just to swallow. Now, remember what we said, that digestion begins in the mouth. So you need to be able to chew properly, at least for a minute. But now, if the food is too hot, you'll not be able to chew it properly. And also, not only that, remember, enzymes, these need to work on the food that you are eating. When something is too hot, even the body, when the body temperature is too hot to an extent, some of the enzymes can be destroyed because, the body is too hot. So eating too hot food is not really recommended, because it impairs your digestive system. You'll not be able to chew it proper, and not only that, but it also bends your esophagus as you swallow, because now you force it to swallow hot stuff, and by the time it reaches there, you even feel it yourself that this food, because you have swallowed hot food. Now the same applies for cold food. Now if food is so cold, now it requires extra more strength for the body to convert it. I mean, to work on it first, to bring it to warm it up, to bring it to the normal temperature of the stomach, which is not so good, because you are exhausting the organs that are responsible for digestion. Now, eating in between meals is another problem that affects our digestion. Now, imagine this: if you've eaten at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then at 1:30, you are eating again. Now remember, the valve which is at the upper opening of the stomach needs to open for the food to get in, right? So as long as you are eating, that valve needs to open to receive food, because it can't close. Where will the food go? So it has to open, whereas the lower valve at the stomach need to close. Now, if you've eaten at 1:30, right, at 1 o'clock, you've eaten. So eventually, after maybe 20-30 minutes, the stomach can now realize, okay, fine, now this person has stopped eating. I think we can start working on the food. And as soon as the stomach starts working on the food, then it is elated. There is another food that is coming. wow, now the stomach has to leave that which they wanted to work on and then open the valve again. Now remember, there is acids in that stomach which was already, mixed with that food. So what will happen as soon as it open, and then sometimes you are too full, as soon as it open, that food flows back into the esophagus, and then you have these burps, you have, the heartburns, you have all those kind of uncomfortable feelings that one might have. Okay, so that is another thing that you will experience. And what happens now to the previous food that the stomach was working on? Well, the stomach leaves what was working upon and start with a new mission, because they just receive a new. So what happened to the food? Fermentation sets in, and you don't want that to happen. Overeating. What happens to our body when we overeat? Naturally, we know if one have overate something, you will know, because your body will just tell you whatever you have done, that is not just. It's that uncomfortable feeling that you have. You feel like sharp pains in your ribs. You feel the headache. You feel like, especially if you also take water and add on the top, that's the worst nightmare. So you not only do you have that feeling, but also it means that when you've overeaten, your stomach has to stretch to accommodate the excess of food that you've put in there. Now, you remember that the pancreas is just underneath the stomach, just between, your stomach and the small intestine, just there at the cave. And then you also realize that, the liver umbrellas your stomach, right? And now, if your stomach has to stretch in order to accommodate food, there are a lot of possibilities that can happen. Number one, your pancreas is, it's squeezed, right? It is squeezed, and then, you can't imagine what might happen after that. So it is made uncomfortable. And not only that, but also the liver is squeezed, because now the stomach is enlarged. And not only that, but also in the process, because you are too full and the stomach is enlarged, the top valve can actually be forced to open, because there's so much food in the tummy that it can accommodate. So the fourth valve, which is an opening to your esophagus and your stomach, can be forced to open, and then you have those acid reflux going back into the esophagus and all those nasty feelings that comes with it. Okay, now, what are some of the things that we are advised not, or what are some of the things that we are advised to be cautious of? It says food should not be eaten very hot, as I said, or very cold. If it is cold, the vital force of the stomach is thrown upon in order to warm it up before digestion can take place. Cold food is injurious for the same reason, while free use of hot drinks is debilitating. That's Ministry of Healing, page 305, 1905. All right, we are also told that more liquid there is taken into the stomach with a meal, the more difficult it is to digest for the liquid. To digest, for liquid must first be absorbed. Christian Temperance and Bible Hygiene and Counsel on Diet. So there we go, that we advise that we are not supposed to be eating and drinking. We are not supposed to be drinking hot stuff or drinking cold stuff. For the children that like ice cream, well, we better train our children, because when they get sick, it is us who will be staying up, all night. Now, some of the things that actually affects our digestion is bubblegum chewing. What happened with bubblegum chewing? Now, you remember that as soon as you start chewing, signals are sent in the stomach to say, listen, we are preparing for food which is coming. And of course, when those sensory messages, when those messages are sent everywhere in the digestive system, it means that the body will get ready to receive food. Now you are chewing a bubble gum and swallowing saliva. Now the stomach have heard that there is food that is on its way. So what does it do? It prepares to unleash the acid to work on the food. Now, the acid is unleashed. The food is nowhere to be seen. and you are continuing chewing the bubble gum. So what will happen? What will happen to that acid? I mean, that acid was supposed to be waking up on something. Now it didn't wake up on something. Well, guess what? It will be working on the lining of your stomach to make sure that it is nicely bent. The next thing, you don't know how you realize you have ulcers, you've pain when you're eating. It's because now the acid has been burning your stomach in the hope that there is food coming that need it. The stomach won't tell that you are now chewing on the bubble gum. No, it just know that now you are chewing, it means you are eating. We need to prepare for that. Okay. And then the other thing that complicates our health is delay in stool elimination. There are people who like to prolong. They have felt the urge of going to the bathroom, and it's not like maybe they are somewhere where there's no bathroom. No, sometimes they prefer to say, I will carry this until when I reach home. Even if there are some toilets somewhere there, they will just say, no, I will hold it. They continue to ignore. By the way, this is waste product and it's supposed to go out of the body. The longer it stays, the longer it contaminates the colon, which might lead to colon cancer. Because remember, this is waste. So if it stays longer in the colon, when your body urges to tell you that you need to go and eliminate, you are actually risking your health as well. And then the other thing is actually poor diet. Now, a diet that is, that lacks fiber, a diet that is high in irritant food such as spice, a diet that is high in flesh. And by the way, flesh food, we are told that, flesh food stays longer in the stomach. Number one, it is greasy, it has a lot of fats. And so that means, more bile should be released from the liver, and also more pancreatic juice to work on those substances. And also it takes a lot of time. It takes longer to process, flesh food than it is with, vegetables and fruits. So there you have it. It's up to us to make a choice to say, what do I choose for my health? Now imagine if flesh food stays longer as it is in the stomach, and then, normally as African, we don't eat 1 meal or 2 meals, we eat 3. So if, for example, I've eaten my, my good fresh food in the morning, it means that by noon, I'll still have that food in the stomach. And then I put the new food. What happened to the old one? Same story. Fermentation happens, and the rest is is impure blood that is running in your system. Okay, irritant food like spice and many other. This they irritates the stomach and cause a lot of illness and a lot of complication. That the cool drinks and many other, they actually not supposed to be taken in the tummy. Okay, so fibers, when we eat food high in fibers, they help in when we go and eliminate. It's very interesting that something about fiber that it is not broken down. It just help to clear, it cleans whatever that we have eaten. As we go to the toilet, it goes with it and makes things very smooth, very interesting. And one thing to note, that fibers, you only find it in fruits and vegetables and nowhere else. You don't get it in legumes and all this plant-based, but not in flesh food. So we need to make a choice as to what we will adopt in our lifestyle and what we will not, depending on where we live and what we have and what we are able to. If we have resources, we have alternatives that we can actually change, why should we not change? Yeah, why should we prolong the change? But if we don't have, then we work toward finding substitute in eating things which can help us to to have a better healthy and improve our systems. Now, lastly, on the quotation, listen to this. It says, respect paid to the proper treatment of the stomach will be rewarded in clearness of thoughts and strength of mind. Your digestive organ will not be prematurely worn out to testify against you. So when we give our stomach rest, when we give our digestive system time to rest, it will not testify against us. It says indulgence weakens digestive organ and lessen power of assimilate. The stomach needs quiet rest. The same way that we our whole body, when we are tired, we want to rest. Can you just imagine you are coming from work and you are given more tasks to do? Normally you want to rest. So after a long heavy meal, the stomach has been working. In most cases, we eat those heavy and late at night, for example, and then the poor stomach is working throughout the night. There's war in the stomach, and sometimes it actually rebels. It just sit there, and say, "Well, I'm tired." So the following morning you wake up, it was working the whole night, and then the following morning again, you pump in more food. When will it rest? So you are actually weakening your digestive system. So we need to give time to our digestive system to rest as well. I want to leave you with this scripture. It says, whether therefore ye eat or drink or whatsoever ye do, do it to the glory of God. So whatever that we do, we should remember that we are not our own. We are God's property by creation and by redemption. In the beginning, God created human being. And when we sinned and we fall short of the glory of God, He still came, that same God that created us. He still came and then He died for us. So twice, by creation, He created us and then He came and redeemed us again. So we are not our own. We are God's property. And in that manner, we should be able to take care of our body, so that we are of beneficial, we are of good service to the Lord. Because do you know what? When you are sick or when you are not well, it means that you are unable to perform the task that you're supposed to do. If you are a Christian and you are sick, it means that that particular week you will not go to church. And it means that you need somebody to look after you. And it means that that person also will deprive the church their service because they need to take care of you. That's a consequence of it. So it's not just you and me who is suffer the pain, but also the people surrounding us who have to take care of us, who have to bear the burden because of our poor lifestyle that we have indulged in. Therefore, I hope this was helpful for you, and I have quite really learned a lot in this, and at some point you laugh and you look at all these things and you realize how much we have made mistakes in our life. But then we know that with God all things are possible, and with His help we are able to change our lifestyle for the better. May the good Lord bless you. Amen.